So what we have happening here is this is a side, it's squared, equals the other two sides squared and added together, minus 2 times the other two sides, times the cosine of whatever this letter is. It'll match, it's just this is an angle, so it's the big formula. So it's the other two squared added, minus 2 times the other two, times the cosine of whatever this one is. Big letter. Okay, so yesterday you were always solving for this letter, right? You were given that one and it always gave you the angle. So today, what's going to be just a little bit different is we're going to be given this one and we're going to be solving for the angle here. So we're going to solve for a specific angle. Which just means you kind of have to do everything a little bit reversed. The operations are just a bit harder. So we're going to look at a few questions, and you're going to have an assignment on delta math again, but don't start on it yet. You'll have plenty of time to do it. So the scenario that we're going to see today is that we're going to be given 3 sides of the triangle. So this is what we call side, side, side. We're given no angles, so it's going to be hard to find any of the angles if you start with none, right? And so we're given a triangle, and we're given 3 sides, whether they're A, B, C, or X, Y, Z, or D, E, F, or whatever. We're going to be given 3 sides. So if I were to draw this one, we could call this side 4.8. We could call this side 7.2. Doesn't really matter in this one, 9.3. We've got a triangle with 3 sides, and we want to find the measure of an angle. Okay? And in particular in this question, just something you want to write down. We got our 3 sides there, and so this one would be big W, so that's little w, little y here, this one big Y, and then little x. Little ones always opposite the big ones. So we're asked to find the measure of angle W, big W. All right, there's opposite of little w. So when we write out this law of cosines, if we take the idea of the a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of big A, we're going to use this model. What do you think we would start with? What number would we start with? Right, 4.8, because we want to start with w, because w would be the only one that would have w in the equation, right? And this particular one, it would be like w squared equals x squared plus y squared minus 2xy cosine of big W. Essentially what it is. You don't have to write that out every time. But we'll always start with whatever angle we're trying to find. So note, always start with the same letter as you're trying to find. So we're trying to find big W, so we're going to start with the same letter, little w. Does that make sense? Yeah. We're asked to find big W, so we know the first thing that we're going to start with is little w. Because the first and the last always match up. If we start with little x, then, well, we're going to have big X in the formula. It's not going to work. So let's go ahead and try to solve it here. So we start with little w, and again, you don't have to write this out, but you're just going to start with the same letter as you're trying to find here. We'll start with that one, 4.8 squared equals, and then it's just going to be the other 2 sides squared and added together. So 7.2 squared plus 9.3 squared. Okay, and then it's the other 2 plugged in, so minus 2, 2 is always 2. And then we plug in the other ones, 7.2, 9.3. It also doesn't matter the order that you put these in, because you're adding them here. It doesn't matter the order, just as long as you have the other 2 sides here. It doesn't matter if you switch them. And then we have the cosine of what we're trying to find, which is W. So we got everything except for that one cosine we're trying to find. You will need a calculator. And it's not quite as easy. Yesterday was easy because you could just like plug the whole thing in. I showed you how to do that. Did you guys use the ANS thing to do it? Yeah, it makes it a lot easier, right, when you do that. So you can still use that shortcut a little bit, but you can't unfortunately just like plug this whole thing in. You gotta do it in steps a little bit more. All right, so here's one way to do it. That is to go ahead and just square this one. Squared. We've got to do inverse operations to get to this W, so we got to get everything else over to here. So it's a little bit harder. We're going to square it, write it out. And then often what I'll do here is just take these two and just, since they're added together, just go ahead and square them and add them together. So then just do 7.2 squared plus 9.3 squared. Just type that all in at once. And we'll get 138.33. So that's all of that put together. And then this whole thing is all one term here. It's all just one big term. So what we're going to do is just do these three parts here. And do minus, and then do these three parts. 2 times 7.2 times 9.3. And you could even type it in with the parentheses if you want to. 2 times 7.2, parentheses 9.3. Then we get 133.92. And then cosine W. Kind of group it in that way. You group this set together, and you group this set together. So what would be the next thing we should do then? Good. So now we'll subtract this over. It's a positive, even though there's a negative sign that's on the other side. So we're going to subtract this over to here. It'll always be these same steps. Minus this over. It's going to be a little more careful with all of your decimal points. And you'll get a negative 115.29 equals 1.2. Okay, then what would be next? So although this looks like it's like a negative, right? This is attached to this, right? It's next to it. Yeah, so we got to divide by this number. So this is going to be a division. So we're going to divide by negative 133.92 on both sides. Like I said, this one has a few more steps, not quite as easy. And you should already, if you did this, you should already have negative 115.29 in your calculator. If you have it there as your last thing, then you can just hit divide by. You don't have to retype it. Just hit divide by, and it'll take the previous answer. And then so just divide by negative 133.92. Enter. And then you'll get cosine W on this side is the only thing left. And you got a big decimal over here. I'm not going to write out the whole thing, but it does go on. You know, it goes on a long way after that, right? So we got one more step. How do we get W by itself?
You do that cross negative 1.
Good, yeah, the inverse cosine. So then W is the inverse cosine of this. Now, if you're doing this, you should also again have that 0.8608, all of that in your calculator. So now what you're going to do is do that, second cosine, we'll clear it out, and then do the second A and S again. And then we'll just plug in all those decimals for you. So you're going to be plugging in this into there. We just do the second A and S because it makes it way easier than. You don't want to lose a lot of your decimals, so you just hit second A and S and we'll just plug it in there for you. So inverse cosine A and S. And then you'll get 30.58. We're supposed to go to the nearest degree. So 31. Definitely, a lot more happening there, but it's the same formula. You just got to be more careful with your numbers as you go through the steps. You got a little room for error for most of them because it's the nearest degree, but definitely take advantage of the A and S parts. Any questions before we try another one? All right, let's go ahead and try another one. And if you want to type in an answer for this too, you can. We'll go through it, but if you got a hang of it and you want to try it, see if you can get the right answer. Yeah.
When I typed it in, I actually got like 141.46. That's not
For the final answer?
The final answer, yes.
Did you do the inverse cosine?
Yes, I did. With the negative.
It could be in,
0.86.
maybe you're in radian.
No, it's in degrees.
In degrees.
Actually, it's in degrees. See when I typed it in.
Oh, you put in a negative here as well.
Yeah, when I put in there was a negative answer.
There shouldn't be a negative. It's gone, but it's a negative divided by a negative. The negatives cancel. Yeah, so make sure it's a positive number. That was the same on yours. Juice. Yeah, you had a negative in there as well. So since you divide the negative by the negative, it cancels out. It'll always be a positive number. Good question. All right, let's go ahead and try this one. I'm not going to draw a triangle because we don't really have to. But just take a look at what we're given. So we're given three sides again. And we're asked to find the measure of big P, right? Capital P. So we should start with little p, right? So start with little p right here because it matches this. So it won't always be the first thing that you want to start with. You gotta find the right one. So we start with little p, 820. So we'll do 820 squared equals. And now we'll do the other two. So the other two are n and o. It doesn't matter the order. You can do any order that you want. We just want to do those two squared, so 910 squared plus 110 squared. Other two squared, and minus 2 times the other 2, which are 910 and 110. And then cosine of big P. So hopefully the plugging in part is easy. Now you can skip, you could theoretically skip a step if you want to. If you wanted to skip a little bit of the writing out, what you could do is in your calculator, you could just do 820 squared. This might make it a little bit easier. Minus, so we know we're going to be subtracting these over. So if you want to do 820 squared minus 910 squared minus 110 squared. This will save you just a little bit of work, so you could write it in this way. 820 squared minus 910 squared minus 110 squared. If you just basically go ahead and move those over, if you wanted to write it that way, it will save you just a little bit of work. And when you do that, you get negative 167,800. If I was doing this on my own, that's probably what I would do. Just do this one squared minus this squared minus that squared, just all in one line and calculate like that. Then what we're left with is this part over here. So we're left with that part. So let's go ahead and do negative 2 is 910 times 110. And we get negative 200,200 cosine of big P. And notice they're both negative again. Is anybody confused on how I got from here to here? All I did was subtract these two over to get this, and then I just multiplied these three things here to get this number. So then Next thing is to divide, right? I need to get the p by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by this number attached to the cosine of p. So divide by negative 200, 200. Notice again, they're both negative, so the negatives will cancel and become positive. So negative 167,800 divided by 200, 0. And again, another decimal 0.838. I don't really have to write out all of it because I'm going to use that second a and s again. Okay. Equals cosine p. So then p is going to be the inverse cosine of that. So p equals inverse cosine of 0.838, or the a and s. I'm going to type in. And fit similar answer here, 33 degrees. After you do it a couple times, you kind of get a shortcut down a little bit. It's not too bad. Main thing is that you can write this out, and then you just really got like 3 operations you got to do, and it's always the same steps every time. Just want to do one more together. Yeah. If you want to go ahead and start, that's fine. I'll do one more. But if you want to go ahead and start on, you're welcome to. Should be active for there. You gotta get 8 correct. And if you need help with the one from yesterday too, I can help you with that today as well. Around help. All right, let's do one more here. All right, so this next example, we're asked to find big G. So we're gonna start with little g. Those are our match. So we're gonna start with 91 squared equals the other two sides squared and added. So it'll be 73 squared plus 73 squared minus 2 times the other two sides. 73 times 73 is the cosine of big G. So there, the first step I'm going to do is 91 squared minus these two. I'm just going to type in 91 squared. 91 squared minus 73 squared minus 73 squared. I'm going to type them like that. I get negative 2377. Equals, and then I've got all of this and going to multiply. 2 times 73 times 73. Negative 106.58. And then we divide both sides by what's attached to the cosine of G. If you get a weird answer or like something that says like domain error, it's generally because you forgot to do the negative signs right. You should always end up with like a positive decimal over here. So that'd be the first thing I double check if you got like an error or the wrong answer. Check that negative. And then the last thing is going to be to solve for G, the inverse cosine of this A and S. And the nearest tenth of a degree. Also, some of them do switch to a tenth, like this one switches to a tenth of a degree. This should be 77.1 degrees. Just pay attention. Sometimes it's the nearest degree, sometimes it's the nearest tenth of a degree. So pay attention to that. And if you're stuck on any, you missed it, and you want me to just go through work and do it, I'm happy to do that as well. Otherwise, you guys can go ahead and get started.